go.
Value. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It's Thursday, July 18th, 2024. And I want to talk about value. I want to talk about it as it relates to the WNBA and their media rights deal. I want to talk about value as it relates to players in Major League Baseball as they spend the next 12 days wondering, will it be me who switches clubhouses? Value is one of my favorite words, whether it's perceived value, actual value. People throw that word around like they know what it is. All of you probably have a different definition of it, which is the exact point of value. Pinned value, currency exchange. You can shop it around. That's like saying gas has a price. We all had relatives who go 2 miles out of their way to save 1 cent per gallon. A dollar, the value of a dollar, your parents teach you. Well, a dollar's a dollar's a dollar. Well, not quite. The value to your company. Pay me for the value that I bring to the company. Don't you value me? The WNBA has been trying to figure out its value for years. You know how you can never establish a value? Is if you're never on the market. That's personally, that's professionally. It's why everybody in sports fights for free agency on the player side. Free market system. It's why our system is so great because in theory, value will be driven by demand, by supply, by quality. The WNBA did these deals with the NBA because the NBA created the WNBA. The NBA is Ed Harris. The WNBA is Truman. The WNBA lives in a world protected. Every once in a while, the commissioner of basketball presses a button. You got a thunderstorm. Waves on the ocean. Of course, there's people in the media who continue to talk about the value of the WNBA media rights deal, the previous one, because the NBA assigned a value of $40 million that ESPN was paying to the WNBA. That is what your TV deal with Disney is worth. Okay. I'm a buyer. I'm good with that. Well, the NBA is completing a $76 billion deal. When people see $76 billion, a lot of weird stuff happens. People are trying to, it's like what lottery, when you win the lottery, you're not supposed to do anything except call your accountant first before you even call your mother or your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's the old joke. The reason is that you want to make sure you're smart with your money, not become a lottery loser. And you want to make sure that you're not a target because there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas of what they want to do with OPM, other people's money. Invest in a restaurant. We'll put your name on a building. The WNBA has the feeling that the NBA got $76 billion and a lot of people want a piece of that. And then yesterday, after speculation that in the sporting class lasted months, that in my mind lasted seconds, that dichotomy makes me laugh. And it came out yesterday that there will be an assigned value of $2.2 billion over 11 years. Do the math. That's $200 million a year, up from 40 that ESPN had done. A huge win for the WNBA. Articles galore. And I'm not anti-women's sports, anti-WNBA. I'm not telling you whether the number's right or wrong. I'm telling you the number is, it's a fugazi. It came out of nowhere. This was not the WNBA being born in the Serengeti, standing up on its own four legs and saying, I can walk. Don't leave me behind. This is the WNBA, who even with Caitlin Clark, who has been exactly as advertised. Last night, she set the record, WNBA record for assists in a game. Every month, Gdanishik, she's doing something that we've never seen. The clear rookie of the year, really an all-star, which she's named. Unbelievable that she's not an Olympian, which I still haven't given up that she'll be named an Olympian because the whole thing is so ridiculous to me. Literally ridiculous. Ratings are fantastic. WNBA. 1 million people are watching the game. 15 times, I think it's happened this year. Rarely has happened before, if ever. Interest for the draft. Interest in all-star voting. All of the metrics that you look at would indicate the WNBA is performing the way a league ought to perform if it's going to succeed. And from that place to a broadcaster giving them $200 million per year for their broadcast rights is roughly the size of the Grand Canyon. How do I know this? Because if the WNBA could have gotten $201 million on its own, then it would have negotiated as part under the NBA umbrella. They would have gone out on their own to get $201 million. There's no indication from either NBC or Amazon or Disney of what they would pay for the WNBA without the NBA. There's no indication that the networks demanded to pay less, would have been willing to pay more for the WNBA versus the NBA. None of the proof exists that is required to inform our opinion as to how this number came to be. All we have are ancillary facts. Except we have a small problem. The small problem is that the players in the WNBA are already beginning to think that they are underpaid, which they very well may be. The players in the WNBA would like to get a larger piece of the revenue pie, which they are currently not entitled to. Should they choose to reopen the collective bargaining agreement, which they will, they have an opener at the end of next year, I believe, Coca, for a deal that expires in 3 years. They can opt out. If the players opt out and exercise this opt-out, which is this fall, which I fully expect them to do, the reason they're doing it is that they want to be paid a higher percentage of existing revenue, and they want to make sure that the league is doing everything it can to maximize the revenue the league gets that would be shareable with the players. Terry Jackson is the executive director of the WNBPA. Probably never heard of it, but they're a union that you're going to start hearing about. Quote, "We have wondered for months how the NBA would value the WNBA in its media rights deal." Excuse me. Hear that word value again? You see how it's not? We haven't wondered how the broadcasters would value us. We wondered how the NBA would value us. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. With a reportedly $75 billion on the table, the league is in control of its own destiny. More precisely, the NBA controls the destiny of the WNBA. Sound familiar? We are aligned. She is correct. We look forward to learning how the NBA arrived at a $200 million valuation. I'm going to give you a hint. Time out, Coca. I'm going to tell you exactly how they arrived at a $200 million valuation. They wanted to have the NBA go up blank percent, which they have, they've tripled their deal. And they had the WNBA increase at that same rate, roughly. That's the rough math. Where we go, you go. And the rate at which we go is the rate at which you go. Previously, the WNBA was thrilled to bits to be able to increase at the rate the NBA was increasing because the NBA was increasing at a rate far greater than the WNBA. Have things changed? Let's go back to the quote. We look forward to learning how the NBA arrived at a $200 million valuation. Neither the NBA nor the WNBA can deny that in the last few years, we have seen unprecedented growth across all metrics. The players continue to demonstrate their commitment to building the brand and that the fans keep showing up. There is no excuse, here's our word again, to undervalue the WNBA again. Many of you think that I take management side over players. On the player side, from a business standpoint, of course, you're going to opt out. You are going to try to get a bigger piece of the pie, 100%. The WNBA players receive 50% of league's incremental revenue. In the NBA, they get 50% of all revenue. Let me explain why that is. The NBA is a mature league. The WNBA is not. And I don't mean as in doing fart jokes in class. The WNBA has been carried by the NBA since its inception. It has lost money every single franchise. The entity itself has been funded and carried by the NBA. Asset appreciation has not been remotely close in the WNBA versus the NBA. I'm not talking about the total asset value because I'm not expecting a WNBA team to be worth $4 billion. I'm talking about the rate of increase. Here's why the players' union has a small problem. Because going back over time, it can be argued by management that the salaries that the players have gotten have actually been higher than they should have gotten because the league has been so unhealthy. And believe me, management will say, if we could get $201 million, we'd get it. It is hysterical to me that players' unions continue to think that owners would rather not increase revenue so as not to give a player more money. When I spend 10 cents to get an extra dollar of revenue, but I only keep 50 cents of that dollar, I'm still making 40 cents profit. It is true that the players do not share in the cost associated with getting that extra dollar of revenue, though I may have pushed for that at one point. So it is true that players get a bigger percentage of added revenue by teams. Of course, there's teams that use expenses and do various things in order to try to level the playing field. But let's not quibble over the reality, which is we are all incentivized to increase our revenue. It's like saying you don't want to work harder to get paid more because you'll have to pay more taxes. It's actually one of the silliest things I've heard from people before, which is why would I bother working to get a raise when the government just takes the raise? Well, of course, you understand that's not the math. The government takes a percentage of the raise, but you still get the benefit of having more money tomorrow than you had today because you worked harder, you made more money. There is no scenario under which the WNBA will be valued at greater than $200 million by NBC, Amazon, or Disney. There is no scenario that the executive director of the players union for the WNBA will prevail as she tries to extract more value out of the TV deal. There is 100% certainty that all of this back and forth is merely positioning for the next collective bargaining talks between the NBA, the WNBA, and the WNBA players, not the NBA. Coca, let me just clean up that last sentence. 4869. There is no question that All of this back and forth is a precursor to the negotiations in the WNBA between management and players. You've got a situation where women's sports on the field, great moment, heading into the Olympics, Women's World Cup. That's not this year. Women's basketball, women's sports in general, just things are good as they should be. There was an announcement yesterday that made me smile because people are out there, I think, Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, paying attention, talking about asset values, explaining why the more something sells for, the better it is, the better it makes the sport look. Did you see where Willow Bay, former anchor of Inside Stuff, and her husband, Bob Iger, former and current chairman, CEO of Disney, have made a purchase? They're getting into the ownership game, baby. It's very limiting. Willow Bay had a very funny comment that she's excited because she's in walking distance of BMO Stadium. Imagine if rich people only bought stadiums they could walk to, and they only bought teams where they could walk to those games. That made me laugh. I think you got to be willing to jump in the car to see your team. Well, Willow Bay and Bob Iger bought Angel City FC, but the real story here, it's a National Women's Soccer League team. We've talked plenty about the NWSL. Mostly we've talked about their off-the-pitch issues. Terrible, terrible sexual assault, harassment, all sorts of stuff going on. But now we've got a new topic because Willow Bay and Bob Iger, it's reported, are buying controlling stake in Angel City FC with a value, word of the day, of $250 million for the team. What the actual F double star K is going on? It can't be that team is worth 250. Hold on. Let me just understand why it is. Because they have a great business. They're very involved in the community. They've got a good team on the field. While we understand that the team used to be worth 180, now that we've paid 250, it's worth 250, and the next highest team is worth 120. We are the most highly valued women's team in the world. Wow. Higher than women's Chelsea. It's amazing. Where do you think they came with that? How do you come up with a number when you're negotiating? Well, there's a little word contained in this deal that doesn't get enough attention. It's called enterprise value. Someone in the media, irresponsibly so, said that Willow Bay and Bob Iger, let's just make up numbers here, are buying 50, because it's easier for this show, are buying 50% of Angel City. So therefore, they're writing a check for 50% of 250 or 125 million, and therefore they will have 50% of the team because 250 is the value of the team. Wrong. 250 is the enterprise value. Enterprise value of an asset is equity plus debt. If Angel City borrowed 20 million and owes 20 million to the bank, that means they have 20 million in debt, 230 million in equity, and the team is then worth the value of 250. But when you want to buy into the team and you want to buy 50%, you have to give over 50% of the 230, not of the 250. Willow Bay and Bob Iger did not cut a check equal to 50% of Angel FC's enterprise value. And on top of that, it came out that part of what Bay and Iger are doing is investing $50 million into the team as a balance sheet infusion. Let me explain what that means. You bought a house for $400,000. That's the value of your house. That's the appraised value. You went to the bank. They agreed it was $400,000. You put a down payment of 40 down and you borrowed $360 million. 469, $360,000. You borrow 360, your equity in the house is 40, your debt is 360. The broker says we've got a little surprise for you. When you walk in the house, you may want to check the kitchen cabinet. You walk into the kitchen cabinet, you open it, and there's $50,000 just sitting there. $50,000 right there. You own the house. It's your $50,000. Just out of curiosity, is your house now worth, in your mind, on the market, $450,000? Or is the house still worth $400,000, but you have in your bank or mattress an extra $50,000? You tell me what your answer is to that question. I'll tell you mine. There is no scenario under which a balance sheet infusion changes the value, the underlying value of the company. It changes the cash position of the company. In my example, it doesn't change the value of your house. You put $50 million into a company, it doesn't make the team worth $50 million more. It improves your cash position. Willow Bay is claiming that the team will be worth $1 billion in modestly near term. I know how to make the team worth $1 billion right now. Right now. Instead of opening the cabinet and having 50 grand of cash in your house, in the team offices of Angel City, I want Bob Iger to deposit 100 million shares of Disney, making up numbers. Put them right there. Piece of paper, make it actual shares of stock, and then go out and sell the team and say, but listen here, as part of the sale of the team, you get everything inside the building. Everything. Wink, wink. You may want to look inside the cabinet in the office of the controlling owner because wink, wink, there may be something pretty darn valuable in there. So they go on their due diligence trip and they're testing all the papers. They open the cabinet and they're like, holy crap, it's $850 million of Disney stock. I will pay you $1 billion for that. Give me the $850 in stock. And then the team is like $150 million. You get where I'm going? It's total horse hockey when people give you these numbers in these articles of what a team is worth, what they expect it to be worth, putting 50 million, infusing it. Give me a break. But good luck. Anytime I see the All-Star Game mentioned in baseball, it makes me happy. I should have worn my ring today, Coca. In addition to a World Series ring, I have an All-Star ring. Everyone who is an All-Star gets a ring. And we had rings designed for the 2017 All-Stars. I also have the rings of minor league championships. Ratings were up, which is exciting. Home run derby ratings were down, though I could argue it was going against the RNC after an assassination attempt on the R's candidate. So I would imagine there was a bigger audience for the RNC. I would also guarantee that the home run derby had not gone up against the RNC in previous 2 years. I don't know much. I know tomorrow's Friday, and I'm guaranteeing you that the derby didn't go up against the RNC last year or the year before. We spent some time yesterday talking about Rob Manfred and the comments he made to the media. There are two subjects that I didn't get to, and I very much want to get to them. Coco, what's funny is that I don't know if the camera's working or if my microphone's working, but every time I put up fingers, weird lights are flashing from the computer. And it's strange. So I don't know if you're seeing me. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know if you can hear me, although normally you'd be yelling in my ear, turn the mute off. I have no idea where I was. Angel City. No, strike that. Oh, Rob Manfred. Thank you, Coca. Today must be Friday. Two topics that were not covered. One was the Olympics and one was gambling. I want to cover both. Rob Manfred had a throwaway line yesterday that was not a throwaway line at all. Hugely interesting and important. Talking about the Olympics in 2028. We're about 8 days away from opening ceremony in the beautiful, swimmable, amazing Seine River. Love the beach volleyball in the Champs-Elysees. Wondering whether or not Pizza Pino is open. Wondering how despondent the people in Paris are when you can't get anywhere. It's an absolute disaster in Paris, as it is to host Olympics. It's a huge undertaking. So once Paris happens, LA is on the clock. Olympics in the US mean that there could be a chance that what we've talked about for decades within baseball could happen. Major League Baseball players in the Olympics. Why? Because we're so envious of the dream teams in the NBA, as an example. Hey, we could do that. Why don't we do that? And the reason why Major League Baseball players are never in the Olympics is that owners were never willing to let their players play in the Olympics. Because having players play in the Olympics means you have to stop the season. Because owners would not continue a season. It's not, Coca, tell me about soccer again. When Messi is off playing for Argentina and doing all his international stuff, his friendlies or non-friendlies or these super competitions, does Miami continue? I know MLS took a break for 10 days, but does MLS Miami ever play games where Messi is not available because he's playing for another team? I bet you're going to tell me yes. And if you tell me yes, you can imagine that when Jorge Mas signed Messi, he knew that there were certain times he would be gone and took that into account. Europe, of course, take international breaks all the time as part of their schedule, EPL, Serie A, all the other leagues. And they do this because they recognize players disappear. Baseball has never been able to recognize that. Why? Because you can't have a stop in the season with only certain players playing and other players not, because then you'd need another spring training. You can't just shut down a pitcher for 2 weeks in the middle of the season and then start right back up. That's why you see pitchers going down and getting one rehab start, or they're throwing in between games. They're finding a way to do simulated games. Those things, though, are not a replacement for actually having game-type conditions. The stress of an inning of runners on base. The adrenaline of a situation. We never bought into players saying, oh, we're ready to go. Agents are like, hey, our guy's ready. Trainers are like, oh, no, he's ready. He's ready. Yeah, but he hasn't really done anything this spring. Oh, he's throwing a lot of bullpens. And we had guys out there on the backfield, and they was throwing live bullpens. And then he was on the mound throwing innings. Well, were there umpires? Yeah, we were there. We were calling balls and strikes. Were there 1,000 fans? No, it was a little less than a Marlins game. Were his opponents Albert Pujols and Mark McGwire? Well, sort of. We had the bat boys in there, and we were getting a few at-bats for the single-A guys. I always smiled when I was told that by my baseball people. I'm like, really? We're going to say that he's ready? Now, I'm in favor of bringing him to the big leagues right now. We're paying him anyways on the Major League injured list. Let's go. The problem is that owners don't want their best players to go and then the team continues. And owners don't want their best players to go and the team doesn't continue, because then when the team does come back, the player who went to the Olympics has 2 extra weeks of arm use and games, and everybody else is stale as 5-day-old bagels. But why does it matter so much? Because the World Baseball Classic was what was invented and designed and instituted to make you forget about the Olympics. It was done in a place where Major League Baseball controls it. They own it. They monetize it. They get big crowds in Miami and elsewhere and around the world. Winning the WBC matters. But as it turns out, the players in the U.S., no matter what they say, don't care. If you gave people in the U.S. a chance to win a gold medal in the Olympics or a WBC gold medal, every one of them is choosing the Olympics. I've heard from players from the Dominican and Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Israel. To them, the WBC is the end all. Win the WBC and you're a hero for life. Well, wait, if they won a gold medal, what would happen? So Rob Manfred has acknowledged and agreed they have to have serious conversations about the possibility of MLB players in the Olympics. And here's a newsflash: they're going to find a way. And the reason they're going to find a way is that with an opportunity to have an Olympics on U.S. soil, they can do this as a one-off exception. They can alter the season schedule one time, get owners to agree to a one-time situation where they lend their players to Olympic teams. Rob isn't exactly sure what it's going to look like, but I am. I've got to wait to see about the Olympics. Wait to see is when I tell you something's going to happen. Hear me out on this. MLB will participate in the Olympics, and there will be no All-Star Game in 2028. Why do I say that? Because what they will do is do an elongated All-Star break for one season only. They won't have an All-Star break and then an Olympics break. It'll be called an Olympics break, and they'll say that the Olympics will replace the All-Star Game because you're seeing the All-Stars play with the entire Olympic baseball tournament. That's my wait to see. The gambling one is a little more difficult, and I just want to touch on it because we've talked about, I want to bring you back to some other episodes. And I just want to remind you that Rob Manfred came out and said what we've been saying on Nothing Personal, that it is extremely, extremely smart for DraftKings and FanDuel and other gambling companies to have the ability to work with leagues to catch players who are gambling. We are in better position to do it now. And when we suspend them for life, it's a deterrent because players are going to be smart enough to know not to gamble because they know they're going to get caught. What Rob was doing was acknowledging what we've been saying, which is it's not that there's more player gambling now. It's that they're getting caught more now. There will be more on all of these subjects. I promise you that. All right, Coca. Let's get to a break. When we come back, we're going to review, it's Thursday, a top 100 movie. And I've got some MLB trade talk that may interest you. Hang in there. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thank you for being with us. Go to davidsamsonpodcast.com. We have merch. Check it out. And we're coming to St. Louis. If you are around St. Louis, you can watch a live show. We'll release the live show. So if you're not in St. Louis, you're still going to get to see what we talk about in St. Louis. Monday night ought to be a lot of fun. We'll have our regular show Monday morning live at 8 a.m., Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. But there'll be an extra show in there Monday night. If you want to see it happen live, you got to be in St. Louis at City Winery at 7:30 p.m. I love Thursdays. For 100 Thursdays, we are reviewing every movie in my top 100 list. I don't know how many we've reviewed so far, but it's been going on for a while. Today is number 91, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Have you ever seen a movie where while you're watching it, you want to be every one of the characters? That was my reaction the first time I saw Ferris Bueller. I wanted to be Ferris Bueller. I wanted to be Charlie Sheen, the bad guy in the police station who gets Jennifer Grey to love him. I wanted to be Alan Ruck, Cameron, the best friend, the one who worries so much about his father's car, but the one who's got all this pent-up frustration. This is the 34th movie we've reviewed of our top 100. Thank you, Coca. Amazing. I wanted Mia Sara to be my girlfriend. I wanted that principal to not catch anybody other than be caught himself, which he did. I remember what it felt like the first time I saw Ferris Bueller, and I've seen it 20 times since then minimum. I wanted to catch a foul ball. I wanted to get into a restaurant and talk my way. Very much of my entire person came after watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Who do you think I am? Do you think I'm an amalgam of Ferris and Cameron? Closer to Ferris? Those who know me would have an opinion on that. Watch it with your kids. Watch it with yourself. Watch it again. Don't ever stop. It's a movie that will last forever. It is a Hall of Fame movie. Now you're saying, how could I put it as number 91 all time? That's where it is. It's my 91st all-time movie. All right. What's my 35th top 100 movie we're going to review next Thursday? Hit the button. Thank you again to our loyal audience member who made this spreadsheet, which is davidsamsonpodcast.com. Hit the button. I get to watch The Fisher. This is an interesting one, Coca. Number 28, The Fisher King. The Fisher King is a Terry Gilliam movie starring Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams that's been in my top 5 basically since I started making lists. And I just moved it down when I redid the list, which I do once a year. I moved it down to 28, and I moved it down without watching it again. So now I get to watch it again this week. Maybe next year it'll move right back into the top 5. The Fisher King. Oh, I can't wait to tell you to watch that. Can you imagine if I say, oh, I wouldn't watch that movie? It's in my top 100 for crying out loud, which can also be found on davidsamsonpodcast.com. MLB front offices are busy right now. Trade deadline 12 days away. Are we buying? Are we selling? You're going to see lists, who's available, who's not. This is when MLB insiders start drinking Jolt, start taking no-dos, leave their phones on at all time, no vacation. They tell their families, this is the time of year. Don't bother me till 6 p.m. on July 30th. This is when they're making phone calls literally all day. If you're a Marlins fan and you're watching this, and there's a percentage of you who are, do you think when they moved Jazz Chisholm from center field back to second base that there was some thought that they were going to trade Jazz Chisholm because there were some rumors put out by some baseball insiders that there's certain teams interested in an infielder, and that infielder could be Jazz Chisholm, whether it's the Mariners or the Yankees or any other team? Do you think that Peter Bendix, the GM, president of baseball ops of the Marlins, walked into Skip Schumacher, the manager's office, and said, Jazz has been playing center field for a couple of years. Let's remind him about infield. Well, Peter used to play shortstop. Yeah, I know, but let's put him at second base. Do you think it's a coincidence that there's second base openings for a couple of buying teams in the playoff run? Do you know what I never did? I never made it so damn obvious what I was doing. May have done a little bait and switch when it came to player moves. But moving Jazz to play, here's what opposing team scouts are doing. They're at the Marlins game. They're sitting at Marlins Park, and they're looking out, and they're saying, oh, Jazz can play second base. Let's acquire him. I totally forgot. It didn't even occur to me. Thank God the Marlins put him there, because otherwise it wouldn't have mattered. I would have assumed it was only an outfielder. What did the Marlins think, that the rest of the teams are stupid? We know what position players can play. And sometimes we don't care whether they can play it. We called up Miguel Cabrera, one of the great prospects of all time, Hall of Famer, first balloter. You know how many games he had played at left field when he became our starting left fielder in June of 2003? I think it was 1. We were just like, hey, can you catch a fly ball without having it hit you in the face? All right, thank you. You're a big leaguer. I think the Mariners are scouting and looking and saying, ooh, look at that fancy footwork around second base during that DP. Let's acquire Jazz. It's literally preposterous. Can't stand it. One of the hardest things I ever had to decide is when to trade a player. I always would trade too late versus too early. I mean, the Miguel Cabrera trade doesn't count. When you have to make a trade, you have to make a trade. But I'm talking about like Tarek Skubal. You watched him, that Tigers pitcher. You may have watched him during the All-Star game. If you haven't watched him, he's really good. The Tigers have had a problem because they signed Miguel Cabrera to that extension. Dave Dombrowski signed him to an extension when he didn't need to. I'm glad Miguel got the money from Illich. I really would like Miguel to make as much money as he wants. But that contract really did hamstring the Tigers. AJ Hinch, their manager, erstwhile of the Astros, is trying to rebuild and get some wins for Detroit. So he and Scott Harris have to think to themselves, what are we going to do with this asset? One of the problems with the deadline that is under the kimono that Coca gets upset when I bring you is that nowhere in the front office are the discussions being had. Tarek's a really good guy. He's got a family. His kids are in school. I think he's got a place in Detroit. God, maybe we shouldn't trade him. I mean, it's so upsetting to trade a guy in the middle of the season. It can really be tough. Sorry, folks. Park's closed. It just doesn't happen that way. Never. What matters is what we put on our board, which is how many years are left until the player is gone. How many years are left until the player gets paid in arbitration? We have a list of players, what their service time is. Tarek has 2 years of arbitration eligibility left. This is how you maximize his value in the trade market with 2 years before free agency, because what that means is you're going to get a much bigger haul in prospects when you trade him, or in value between prospects and big league ready players or already big league players, because Tarek, as you know, is a performing big leaguer. But then you're giving away 2 years of performance that he could give you in Detroit versus another team. So what you have to do if you're Detroit is say, are we competing? Can we compete? What does our team look like next year? Dear Mr. Ilitch, can you please just tell me whether or not our payroll is going up? Is it going down? For all of you who think that President Scott Harris had the quote of the year by saying, hey, it's highly doubtful that he's going to be moved, but then a source said everything has a price. That's a lot of the next 12 days. You call up a team and do a little sniper action. Hey, can we get Skubal? I think the A's are being sniped right now with Mason Miller. He's their closer. He's got, what does he have, 4 years before free agency, 5 years before free agency? He's a kid. You saw him pitch during the All-Star game. If you haven't watched him play, he was the winning pitcher. He puts the N in nasty, the D in dirty, and the T in tradable. The A's think they're going to open a new ballpark in 2028, NGTH. He is a kid. He's 26 years old. He's a kid, Coca. I mean, he's not 19, but we wouldn't talk about 19-year-olds the way we talk about Mason Miller. Mason Miller is a performing bullpen arm. I'm asking about his years of service. How long until he's a free agent? My guess is 5 years. 5 years is 2029. The A's, if they were being honest with you, would say that's probably the year stadium will open, if that. So this guy could be the centerpiece of our new stadium. Nope. Well, we have to have a good team as we're building a stadium. No. Well, we want to build to a really good team when we open the stadium. Yes. A pitcher with 0+ experience who is a closer like Mason Miller is not going to be the anchor of a team in a new ballpark. There is no scenario under which that happens. You don't want, no matter if you are the Vegas A's, the Sacramento A's, the Oakland A's, I don't care what A's you are, having a $20 to $30 million closer, which would be, if he's the best of the best the way he is now, you're not going to be able to build a good enough team around that. Therefore, if you know that Mason Miller is not going to be your closer of the future, then make him your closer of the past. Maximize the value. You want to talk about 2 years of free agency left when you've got 5 years until free agency. What teams would give to get Mason Miller, it'll knock your socks off. And by getting the prospect package back that the A's would get, those are the players who will be pre-arbitration in this purported new ballpark, performing at the big league level. That's how you win rings. It would be foolish for the A's to not trade Mason Miller. He will never be worth more than he is today. Ever. Speaking of worth, one of my favorite things happened in the NFL. I am all in for players trying to do something that's never been done. I love it. I try to do things that have never been done all the time. I dig it. Caleb Williams. You know who Caleb Williams is. The franchise quarterback. the #1 pick, tanking for Caleb, the one who's going to be there when the Bears open their new facility in Arlington, the one who's going to be there when the Bears open their facility in Aurora, the one who's going to be there when the Bears open their facility in downtown Chicago. He is the franchise. There's only one small, slight, teeny, eensy-weensy problem. He hasn't signed his contract yet. NFL starts in 49 days. You must be thinking to yourself, shall I be worried? No, Caleb Williams will sign. But what came out yesterday blew my socks off. Caleb Williams, according to an article in Pro Football Talk by Mike Florio, was trying to convince the Bears to do two things. One, he wanted to have his own limited liability company. Let's pretend it's called Caleb Williams LLC. And he wanted the Bears to contract with this LLC, pay this LLC as a way to avoid income tax. Well, for those of you who know the rules of an LLC and a sole proprietorship, I have no idea why this was even either presented or written about or talked about, because it's just wrong. When you own an LLC, the taxes of the income of the LLC are passed down to you, the individual owner. Caleb Williams will always have to pay taxes on his income. Always. But the second one was even better. Dear Chicago, I love you, man. Dub Bears. I'm going to be happy here forever. But when I sign my first contract that I'd like to sign right now, could you do me a favor and add addendum for Gimmel that there is no ability of you, the Bears, to apply a franchise tag to me, the star quarterback? Do you know what the franchise tag is in football? It's the thing that stops you from becoming a free agent. Yeah, you get paid a lot of money on a one-year deal. Yeah, it's all guaranteed immediately at signing, but you're not free. So instead of 4 years when you're a top pick, which becomes 5 years with the tag, that becomes 7 years. 7 years. In baseball, it's 6 years. So it's not totally outrageous. 1 extra year. And by the way, you get to start earlier in football. You're immediate, drafted, and then you start the clock. Now, of course, half the people don't make free agency, more than half, in either baseball or football. But let's digress. Caleb Williams will make free agency because he's the #1 pick, and #1 picks never fail. And by asking to eliminate the franchise tag, he's trying to make himself a free agent in 5 instead of 7 years. The NFL said, absolutely not. I will not do it. The Bears looked at Caleb Williams and said, are you going to be the player that starts the trend of eliminating what we collectively bargained for, which is to keep the best players on the teams that draft them for the full 7 years? Are we going to give up what we gained in collective bargaining because you're asking? No chance, toilet pants. The union thought Caleb Williams was the perfect conduit to make progress within a collective bargaining agreement. Not even at the table for a new CBA, but within the CBA, which is why you've got a labor department and why you've got a union full of lawyers who are spending time trying to make progress within the four corners of the agreement that exists. So when the new agreement comes, they can make that incremental growth stick. Caleb Williams was forced to sign his new deal, which he eventually did, with none of the clauses that he asked for. That would have been unprecedented, brand new, and no likelihood of ever happening. But the players win here because they've opened the door to rookies being able to ask for things that the teams and the league say no to. But it reminds the players and management that you're always negotiating. You are always working against each other. No matter what time of year it is, no matter how old a player is or how much they've played, guess what? It's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is Nothing Personal.